There are at least 3 ways to build most EDH decks.
Strong like muskox.
Fun like the river otter.
Or mean like rattlesnake.
Let's look at the strong, fun, and mean ways that I would build Nymris, Oona's Trickster, and the video starts right now. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. Today we're going to talk about the 3 ways that I would build Nymris, Oona's Trickster. But first, if you would, go down there, hit that like button, that subscribe button if you like the video by the end of it. And if there's a commander that you want me to build 3 ways, let me know down in the comments and you might see it pop up in an upcoming video. Let's look at this commander. Nymris, Oona's Trickster. 1 black, 1 blue, 3 other for a 1/6 Fairy Knight. It's got flash, and it's got flying, and it says whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand and the other into your graveyard. We are going to get value. We're going to get card draw off of playing in our opponent's turns and not ours. That's what we mostly want to focus on for the strong and mean builds. If we can get Nymris onto the battlefield, we're going to be able to do rare things like play a removal spell, a targeted removal spell that replaces itself, or play counterspells or anything that flashes in that replaces itself, and that's pretty huge for card advantage in the game. For the strong way that I would build Nymris, I'm going to go with total flash. We're going to make sure that everything in our deck, if we can make it that way, can be played on our opponent's turns and we can take advantage of Nymris's ability. For the fun way, we're going to build an entire bug army around Nymris. Nymris, I see, likes to use beetles as mounts, and so I'm assuming that the rest of the army also takes advantage of creepy crawlies, and we're going to focus on that. And for the mean way, we're going full control. We're going to take advantage of what I was talking about, where every single counterspell or removal spell is going to replace itself. Let's look at the strong way. Some of these cards are just going to be excellent cards with flash. Some of these are going to give more of our cards flash if we can't find only instance or flash spells, and that starts with Leyline of Anticipation. If it's in your opening hand, it can start on the battlefield, and you may cast spells as though they had flash. Boom. If you can get enough redundancy on this ability right here, it doesn't matter what you play in the deck, if it has flash or instant speed or not, because Leyline of Anticipation and other cards are going to give it that ability. Dictate of Erebos is a flashing enchantment that says whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So you want to play this as a last-minute trick. You want to make sure that if one of your creatures is dying, or all of your creatures are dying, each opponent has to sacrifice a creature for each creature you control that dies, and you want to surprise them with that. Speaking of surprises, Notion Thief is a 4-mana 3/1 flasher. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. We're going to turn their card advantage into our card advantage. And Opposition Agent. This card is so brutal. 3 mana, 3/2 flasher. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remained exiled, and you can spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. This card is like Notion Thief, but on an insane level. If they go to search their library instead, you get to find those cards, exile them, and then use them yourself. Opposition Agent, when it was printed in Commander Legends, I swear became an instant black staple card, and I love it, especially for this deck. Vidalcan Orrery is a lot like Leyline of Anticipation, where it says you may play non-land cards anytime you could play an instant. Snapcaster Mage is going to let you flash in a wizard that gives an instant or sorcery flashback until end of turn, equal to its converted mana cost, equal to its actual mana cost, excuse me, and so we're going to get to reuse spells that we've already used. You know we can't play a flash deck without Teferi showing up. Here's Mage of Zhalfir, 5 mana for a 3/4. Creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield have flash, and this is going to reverse it too. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime he or she could cast a sorcery. So we get to play at instant speed. Nobody else gets to play at instant speed. Teferi's Ageless Insight is going to let us draw even more cards. If we can put some instant speed card draw in here, it's going to let us draw even more cards because it's not happening in our draw step. It's happening on our opponent's turn. That's when we want to be drawing cards. That's when we want to be doing everything. Jin Gitaxias is just insane. 10 mana for a 5/4. Got flash. At the beginning of your end step, draw 7. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7, meaning they have to discard down to 0 cards unless they've got something that's making their hand size infinite. Torrential Gearhulk is going to be sort of like Snapcaster Mage, except we get a big 5/6er onto the battlefield, and we cast it without paying its mana cost, and it can only be instants. However, bringing back those instant speed counterspells or card draw with Teferi's Ageless Insight on the battlefield, a 5/6 blocker out of nowhere, it can really be great. Spell Stutter Sprite is a 2 mana 1/1 flash flyer. When it enters the battlefield, counter target spell with CMC X or less, where X is a number of fairies you control. So your commander's a fairy. Spell Stutter Sprite can counter spells as long as you've got some fairies. I think that a fairy sub-theme could work really strongly in this deck, and so why not run cards like Glenalendra Archmage? 4 mana, pay 1, sack the Archmage, counter target non-creature spell. Plus then it gets to come back. This is the kind of card that can get really annoying for our opponents. Sower of Temptation, 4 mana for a 2/2 when it enters a battlefield. Gain control of target creature for as long as Sower remains on the battlefield. And obviously counterspell. We're going to talk about counterspell more in our third section, in our mean section, but this is what I'm talking about as the base for your deck. This is going to allow you to replace the counterspell in your hand instead of just running out of gas trying to counter everything. You might be able to keep up if you're just really using 1, maybe 2 counterspells a turn. That's the strong way that I would build this deck. Let's look at the fun way and build our bug army. Starting off with Docent of Perfection, the Insect Horror, 5/4. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. Then if you control 3 or more wizards, transform it, and it transforms into Final Iteration. Wizards you control get +2/+1 and have flying. It's a 6/5 flyer, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you still get to put a 1/1 onto the battlefield. That's a pretty good bug right there. Bane of the Living is a 4, cost 4/3. It's got a morph of X Swamp. When Bane of the Living is turned face up, all creatures get -X until end of turn. So you got board wipe on an insect? That's what I'm talking about. You want to insect infect? Go ahead and insect infect. Stinger is going to let you do that for just 2 mana. Maybe build an insect theme into here. Maybe have an infect sub-theme in your insect theme. That's how we do it. Endless Cockroaches, 3 mana 1/1. When it dies, return it to its owner's hand. Get some sacrifice effects going in your deck, and you're going to be able to sacrifice these cockroaches endlessly. You can also have a brood of cockroaches, and for 2 mana, when it's put into your graveyard from play, pay a life and return it to your hand at the end of turn. These come back over and over again as well. Hex Parasite can actually be very useful. 1 mana for a 1/1. It's got a Phyrexian mana and X. Remove up to X counters from target permanent. For each counter removed this way, Hex Parasite gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Kill any planeswalker that's on the field. Just like that. Just pay the mana and do it. Green is one of the most popular EDH colors. Blight Beetle has protection from green and doesn't allow anything our opponents control, any creatures anyway, to get +1/+1 counters put on them. As far as insects goes, that could end up doing a lot in EDH. And Woodlock Crawler, protection from green, and it's got Forest Walk, so you can either use it as a blocker for their big green thing that doesn't have trample, and you're just like, whoops, here's my little crawler. Or you can just, I guess, ping in for 2 every time. It's a pretty solid insect if you're trying to build a bug army. Those are Nymris's bugs. Let's look at the mean way and build a full control version of this deck. If we're building a counterspell deck, let's start with Baral. Instants and sorceries we cast are going to be 1 less to cast, and whenever a spell or ability we control counters a spell, we draw a card and then discard a card. That, combined with Nymris's abilities, are going to make sure that our hands are full, and they're full of the stuff that we want to be in there while we cast counterspells. Here's Rewind. It's a really strong one because it untaps the lands after it counters the spell, so you're up to counter anything else your other opponents might want to do. Sublime Epiphany, just because of the versatility and the amount of triggers and abilities you get for 6 mana here. Choose one or more. You can counter a spell, counter an activated or triggered ability, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and draw a card. All for just 6 mana. That's not a bad card right there for Commander. Dismiss counters a spell and draws a card, so we get to keep our handful even more, which is important in Commander, especially when you're just going heavy removal, heavy counter. Fierce Guardianship, because it's free if your commander's on the battlefield. Counter a target non-creature spell. Also, let's run Hero's Demise. Destroy target legendary creature. It doesn't have to be just really low mana cost, high power counter spells. Look at your targeted removal as well. There's going to be some pieces like that you want to build into this deck. We talked about free spells for countering. Let's exile target creatures for free as well. Instant speed. We're doing this on our opponent's turn so that we're getting extra cards from Nymris's ability. Now, what are we doing? We're destroying everything. We're countering everything. Why are we doing this? Well, let's win the game with some very strong combos. The first of which is Demonic Consultation using Jace Wielder or like Thassa's Oracle. So Demonic Consultation, you're going to name a card, remove the top 6 cards of your library from the game, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal that named card. Put that card into your hand and remove all other cards revealed this way from the game. So what you're going to want to do is name a card that's not in your deck and get your deck all the way down to 0, and you'll see why if you don't already know. Tainted Pact is a 2-mana version of this instant. Remove the top card of your library from the game. You may put that card into your hand unless it has the same name as another card removed this way, which will never happen because it's singleton. Repeat this process until you put a card into your hand, or you remove 2 cards with the same name, whichever comes first. So you just let that get all the way back down to 0, and you have a Jace Wielder on the battlefield. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So you use Demonic Consultation or you use Tainted Pact to kill your entire library, and then tick Jace up to target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, draw a card, and you would win the game right there. You can also use Thassa's Oracle to achieve this. You look at the top X cards of your library for X, where X is your devotion to blue. It doesn't matter what X is because we have no cards in our library left. Thassa's Oracle, by default, your devotion is going to be 2. So you look at the top 2, and if that's greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game outright right there. So you can go this route of like dump your whole library into your graveyard and then use Jace Wielder or Thassa's Oracle or cards like Laboratory Maniac to win the game off of having no cards in your library. But there's also a cool combo that we can do with the Scarab God and Mirror Mad Phantasm. This is a combo that's going to want Laboratory Maniac in your library, and to set up the combo you need Scarab God on the battlefield, Mirror Mad Phantasm in your graveyard, and then Laboratory Maniac in your library. So the first thing you're going to do is pay 4 mana on the Scarab God to exile target creature card from a graveyard targeting the Mirror Mad, create a token that's a copy of it except it's a 4/4. So then on the end of the turn right before ours, we're going to pay 2 and have Mirror Mad Phantasm's owner, us, shuffle it into their library. It's a token, so it doesn't get shuffled in. If that player does, they reveal cards from the top of the library until a card named Mirror Mad Phantasm is revealed. So we achieve the same effect as Consultation or Tainted Pact and empty our entire library into our graveyard, and the Mirror Mad Phantasm token is gone away because it was a token and it can't get shuffled into your library. Then on our upkeep, we pay the Scarab God's ability again, targeting Lab Maniac. Laboratory Maniac is exiled. We get a token that's a copy of Laboratory Maniac, and when we go to draw a card, Laboratory Maniac says if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So that could be a fun way to win a full control deck build, is have this way to dump your entire library into your graveyard and then win with a card that says you win the game. You've got all those counter spells to protect those combos as well, so it's something that might really work. That's the strong, fun, and mean way that I would build Nymris. Let's close that book. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments how you're going to build Nymris. Also, while you're down there, let me know if there's a commander that you'd like me to build 3 ways. Other than that, like I said, if you wouldn't mind, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you liked the video, and this is your first time or second time watching a Jake and Joel or Magic video, get down there and hit that subscribe button. And if you've watched a couple of our videos and you want to support us further, Patreon link is down in the description below. We got a lot of cool stuff happening over there. Other than that, I'm tapped out. I'll catch you later.